All right, almost there. Going
It's
live on
live.
Facebook. 3, 2, and almost there. God, it's slow.
We're there.
Not
It's live.
quite.
Yeah, we are.
Are we live?
Live, yeah.
All right, we're live. All right, everybody, welcome. We are live and official now. So fear and doubt, opportunity and confidence, and everything in between in real estate. We got a great lineup, super great panel today here in Minnesota. I want to get some intros out. We'll start with Sarah Pickens. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Hi, I'm Sarah Pickens. I run the Love Home Minnesota team at RE/MAX Advantage Plus. Been selling for 16 years and happy to be here. Answer any questions.
Awesome. And Sarah, you're quite the producer. You do a lot of business. So, and thank you for taking time out of your day to come and help us out here. John Schuster, let's get a quick intro on you.
Hey all, John Schuster, Coldwell Banker Realty. I run a team out of 15. I've also been in the business for over 16 years and yeah, having a blast.
Awesome. And again, thanks for participating. We got Ryan O'Neill, who on this webinar is labeled as Long Doan. I think everybody wants to be long today, but my thing, it looks like he's long. So Ryan, quick intro.
Hey, thanks for the invite. I'm Ryan O'Neill with the Minnesota Real Estate Team and RE/MAX Advantage Plus. Appreciate you guys putting this together. I've been in the business since 2003.
You have, yes. Noelle.
Hi.
Intro.
Well, I'm Noelle Nielson, and I am with Birch, which is now brokered by EXP, and we've got a group that is growing of about 50 agents with us, and we have been specializing in video and all things virtual for the last year or so. So video.
I bet you that feels like it's paying off right about now.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm happy to help.
Myself and Long Doan. Long, you want to give your intro quick?
Yep, Long Doan, Mike's Bernier, partner here at Realty Group. Happy to be here.
All right, so today what we're going to be doing, we're going to be talking about the whole COVID crisis, how it's interacting with real estate as an industry. One thing I'm really excited about with this panel, it's broker agnostic. It doesn't matter which company we're all from. We all, in our own rights, have been in real estate a long time, done a lot of production, have a certain level of influence in the industry. So this is a great panel. We're going to have a great discussion. That being said, I'd like to jump right in. We ready to jump right in, get to some questions here?
Let's get this party started.
Let's do it. All right. So first question, and whoever wants to take this. And I think what the agents are really, one of the questions I'm hearing a lot about is really how the COVID crisis is affecting or is going to affect the market. How are you guys feeling so far of what the effect is on the real estate market here locally in Minnesota?
So far, I think it's still pretty strong here. I mean, I still have buyers wanting to do stuff and people have to move. I do think maybe my higher end stuff is sitting a little bit slower. Those people are kind of watching with the economy, but anything under 400, my buyers are still thinking it's time to move and my sellers are still wanting to do it. So.
Okay, so anybody else?
I'd second that. You know, we've seen the last couple of weeks, I mean, the listings we put on, we've gotten showings, 70% of them under contract, half of those still have multiple offers, and that's, sub 350. Looking at showings that are going to come this next week, I think we're seeing lower new showing activity coming through since the true stay-at-home has been put into place. How about the rest of you?
I'm going to say that I'm seeing a mix of that in what over the last week I've been watching a lot of these real estate virtual webinars happening where people are saying business as usual, business as usual. And I don't necessarily think that that is a correct analysis. And I also don't want to see agents like getting down on themselves because they are seeing a negative impact of COVID happening. And so in our group, we've had a mix of listings selling, like we posted something on Friday and by Saturday we had 4 offers on it, a couple all cash offers. Versus we've also got listings that they totally pulled them off the market, don't want to participate. And, it's in a buyer and seller's hands right now, how much they actually want to participate. And so I'm actually seeing a really good equal mix of, market is still strong and there's activity happening, but there's a lot of buyers and sellers that are freaking out and you can't get them to go into a house. You can't even get the seller to allow a virtual tour to happen. And so that's kind of what I'm saying. I'm seeing a mix.
Great. Awesome answers. So, before we started this, I just, mentioned some basic stats from SPAR, the St. Paul Area Association of Realtors, that they posted. For the second week in a row that I've looked, we've had an increase in new listings and new pending transactions from the same week the year before. So Noelle, are you saying basically that, and I think John, you touched on this too, that you're seeing people fall out over fear and uncertainty, but you're also seeing a different group of people coming in that are taking action. Maybe they're seeing opportunity, or they want to get something done before things go crazy. And I think one of you guys kind of touched on that a little earlier. So what's your thoughts on that? Are you seeing people exit the market on one end and enter on another?
Yeah, I mean, I'll comment, Mike. I think certainly there is a lot of folks who are just unsure, and I think everybody reacts differently to stress and the unknown, and really the lack of control that we're all experiencing. And so I really have been trying to encourage agents to be empathetic, to be understanding to our clients, regardless of where they're at in the buying and selling process, because they certainly will remember how we have treated them during this time. And I just think, again, some people like Sarah, Noelle, and others have mentioned, they're taking advantage of this market by getting out and still transacting. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people that are really genuinely freaked out, and they don't want people in the houses, and they don't want people moving forward. And so I think part of it is just having a level of understanding as an agent, but more so focusing on what you can control every day. We can control our attitude, our effort, and how we treat other people. And I think for us as agents, if we really focus on that versus all the other noise, the stuff that we can't control, I think it helps mentally. At least it helps me.
I love that answer. So I wanted to, ask a question on, or make a statement based on what you just said. Looking at some of the larger chat rooms or groups, closed Facebook groups like Lab Coat Agents, Real Closers, I'm seeing a lot of agents post things like, how do I handle the objection if I don't want to buy or sell? And that makes me personally cringe. I don't think this is a time to be handling objections. I think that's what you're saying, right, Ryan? That if you be empathetic to people and their fears and concerns, we don't have to sit there and try to use sales tactics on people that don't want to transact. Any feedback on that?
I agree with that. I don't think it's an objection saying that. That's an objection you can overcome, that somebody's feelings and their fears and being scared in this market. And so it's just a matter of trying to calm their fears and make sure that they know that you're there for them whenever they are ready. I'm not pushing anybody. It's just the ones that want to go, I'm going. But the ones that don't want to, like I have some sellers that are waiting until the shutdown's over. And that's totally cool because they're scared about where they're going to, because they're like those 250 houses, right? And then they don't know if the big ones are going to come on that they're moving up to right now either. So great answer, great perspective there. Now an objection of, hey, I'm scared, I don't want to do anything, versus somebody seeking guidance of, is now a good time to buy or sell? Is there a difference between looking for true guidance and trying to steamroll past an objection?
I think you just have to let people know that that the housing market is still open. I think there's some mindset with this stay at home that real estate is closed down for some people and everything is closed down. And obviously for people that are maybe not looking to move immediately, maybe now is the time to let them know we can take advantage of virtual tours. They don't necessarily have to get into that house. We've been feeling some objections from some sellers also that don't want to have people through, and I totally get that. But we need to let the community know, for people that do have an immediate buying need, that want to get into something, that the doors are not closed. They still have that opportunity. And with proper safety protocols, we can still safely show homes and sell homes. And I think, we as a community need to get that out in a positive way. And I think we have to be really, really careful what we put out for people to look at on Facebook, social media. And I think, the picture of Ron Burgundy saying, I'm essential, I wouldn't be putting that out right now. I don't know if people really want to see that. And Sarah, I think what you said too is correct. If paraphrasing, that now is not the time to be hard selling people, if it ever, but really getting over those objections and just be cognizant of how people are feeling and respond to that.
It's another thing you brought up here, John. I think that's a great point. If we are going to show homes, if somebody does say, yes, I want to list my home and invite, buyers into it, or if buyers are telling you, hey, I do want to go tour homes, what's sort of our best practices that we can do for responsible home showing tours right now. I mean, let's talk about some of the things you guys are advising your agents or doing yourself.
My mom made us homemade masks, so my whole team has homemade masks with my old hair binders that we put around our ears for all of us to go with, and we all bring disinfectants and gloves and all that kind of stuff. And we get there early to turn on the lights, or I do turn on all the lights and stuff so that they don't have to touch anything when they're in there.
Does that include opening bedroom doors and closet doors?
I open all the doors and stuff too with it.
Gotcha.
Hey, Sarah, do you send it out to your client ahead of time so they know not to worry, you have this under control?
Yep. Or I actually do a phone call with them and let them know that this is what's going on and I'm going to get there and open all the doors for you guys and that kind of stuff. So I just call them and let them know. Now, granted, I've only had a couple of clients that want to actually go there with me, since the shelter in place thing. So the other ones have just been virtual, and those ones are easier, but so far I haven't gotten anybody to write off the virtual ones that I've done either. So.
Okay. So how about anybody else? Best practices of showing homes?
So I think too, if you can work with your sellers, if you are the listing agent, if you can have your seller go around and turn on all lights and turn on, any lamps, open all the doors and whatnot, so that it's just an easy, quick in and out with your clients. Even if you are just going to go show it virtually for your clients, if you can work with the listing agent who can then work with their seller to arrange for all of that, that's much safer. If you can go in like hands-free and not have to touch anything, I would recommend trying to get that done first before actually as the showing agent going in and touching everything. And the other day I just saw one of our friends that is from out of state here. They were using this exact tool, Zoom. And it was the buyer and the showing agent, the seller and the listing agent, all on a Zoom together. And the seller, you have to have the right seller for this, but the seller was taking the clients around on a virtual tour and answering questions on a live call. And I thought that was brilliant. If you have clients that are tech savvy enough, or that you can coach on how to use Zoom or how to go onto a FaceTime Live even, that might be a way that you can have the house virtually shown.
Nice.
Mike, if I can just comment real quick, and long, for those, those that have been selling in this business a good amount of time, remember that every year there is a sizable challenge of some sort with the market. Mm-hmm. How I originally knew Long was he was one of the kings and queens of REO in the Twin Cities. And so I think for those of us that have been selling a long time, we realize every year there is a challenge of some sort, whether it's too much inventory, not enough inventory, interest rates too high, too low, short sales, bank owned. So part of what I think, is this presents an opportunity for agents. What I'm seeing are the really good agents like you all who are digging in and realizing that they provide more value to consumers right now. Consumers are looking for who they can trust. 5-6 months ago when, there were a ton of FSBOs, hey, we don't need an agent, we don't need a broker. Now that there's a little uncertainty, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's more value being placed on the real estate agent and broker. And I think that's gonna benefit all of us. But just don't let your mind go there that more fear, the end of the world. This is just an opportunity to help more people, to get information out during this time. And I think, frankly, it's going to lead, it may lead to some people getting out of the industry, but I think it's going to lead to a lot of agents, very good agents like you all, consumers wanting to engage more with them.
So what you're saying, and I've been a long time, advocate for the real estate community, and I think we shine when things get tough. I think that's where you see the best agents really step forward. Now, you look at some of the market disruptors or so-called disruptors like iBuyers, Zillow, Open Door, and they put a stop on purchasing right now. They're not in the market at the moment, and they were going to replace the real estate agent out of the transaction. That was pretty much what they said. Market gets tough, they put a stop, and we move forward. Mm-hmm. This is where we have our opportunity to show our real value. Another thing you kind of touch on, Ryan, and I would love to see you guys comment on this. How important is a mindset shift right now from where we were 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, for the common everyday solo agent or team agent out there, or even team leader? What changes in your mindset today?
Well, my prospecting calls really aren't prospecting calls right now. I'm just reaching out to pretty much everybody that I've ever worked with just to check in on them and say, how are things going? Do you guys have questions on the market? Because I think our job right now as real estate agents as a whole is to educate the public that we do need to keep the real estate portion moving and that it usually does do good in recessions, even if our stock market doesn't, because that's really what's going to bring our economy out of it. And, you know, you had your 2008 question later, but you know, just to touch on it, I don't feel like it's 2008, but that's what is in everybody's brain right now, because that's the most recent memory. And I don't think we're going to be going there. I think it'll be more like after September 11th, where, you know, we bounced back pretty quickly and kind of brought the rest of the economy out of it. So I think it's our job to educate the consumers on that and negate the fear. And I think that's something we have to do across brokerages, and everybody just has to reach out and do it, because we aren't going to all have houses to sell of everybody else's if we all don't kind of do that collectively as a profession. So
well, I think you hit it, Sarah. Definitely connecting with your database right now, and those calls where normally you'll go through. I use Top Producer, going through the database, and those touching base with your clients takes 3 to 5 minutes. Those calls now are like 10 to 20 minutes. Have you noticed that when you talk to people, that people want to engage in their longer, deeper conversations, which I think is great, and it is. It's just checking in, seeing how they're doing, touching base on their fears, you know, and they want to talk about it. And so it's a great time to connect with your database. So yeah, that's what our team's been doing heavily.
So one thought and then one question. The thought that I have is, you know, the stat that I saw, I don't know if it's true, but the thought I'm having is there's a connectivity rate that's much higher on cell phone calls right now than what you had 3 months ago.
Oh,
People
yeah.
are answering. The stat I saw was 350% higher connectivity rate. People are home and they actually want to connect. So it's a great opportunity for us in real estate to call the people we know and have a relationship with. That's number one. So the question I have is, when you're on the phone with them, how does it really change your messaging? Sarah, I think you kind of touched on it. John, you did too. But instead of, hey, are you still looking to buy or sell a home right now? The common, you know, I guess scripting as you'd call it, when you're talking to people, how does your messaging change today?
You have to come from a place of authenticity, because if you're not, then don't even bother doing it, in my opinion. You know, for example, I have a client that bought a house a little less than a year ago. She also is a small business owner and owns a coffee shop. And she called me in a panic the other day, asking questions about what's going to happen with her mortgage if she can't pay for it and whatnot, which I know we're going to get into that pretty quickly here. But I think if you've got your sphere list in front of you and you know those clients, call them and just genuinely ask, how are they doing? What can you do to help? Is there anything that you can do to help? You know, if you're on social media at all and you've been, you know, doing your job as a marketer, as a realtor, use your social media presence to help give maybe some of those small businesses a boost in a way that you haven't already done that, or, you know, just come from a place of actual contribution and authenticity.
Love it. Anybody else have anything to add there?
I think the only other thing that I would add is this time gives us an opportunity to really be an active listener. I mean, you think about people you know who really are good listeners,
Right.
and how do you feel about that person? And I think sometimes as agents, it's easy for us to talk, and I think this gives an opportunity to really reach out to listen, and to the other folks' point, to just say, hey, you know, how are you? What can I do? I mean, I've had a few friends who've lost jobs, who had their hours cut, you know, and I saw there was just a link on, I forget what website, but just sent out the link, you know, here are 7 firms that are actually hiring. So just doing stuff that's not necessarily real estate related, business related, just, you know, showing you care.
Which I think is probably one of the most important things we can do. Again, not, you know, trying to be an objection handler and utilizing sales techniques, but be a human first and a, you know, real estate professional second, right? And I think that's where the relationships right now can really be built. You know, and we talked about 2008. One of you guys brought that up in 2008. I think, Sarah, you might have. What do you think the difference would really be from 2008 compared to what we're dealing with now? Anyone?
2008 felt like a slow-moving train ride. That you felt the crash coming. At least I did. Like
Yep.
a year before it happened, is, you know, we weren't getting offers anymore. And then people started losing their house. You could kind of feel it coming, where this just happened. I mean, this just feels like it kind of came out of nowhere, or at least within a month or so. And at least for me, where I think some of that pain was isolated to some people and other people, this one, folks, we're truly like all in this together. And I mean, we all have friends, family that have lost jobs, that have been laid off, that are just in a tough situation right now. And that is the one thing that I feel is different, that where before it was maybe isolated a little bit, this is something that's not just going to affect all of us, but it's going to be worldwide. I mean, we're all kind of going through this pain and struggle together.
So what you're saying is probably ditch a commission breath if you have it, and start thinking about, you know, how you can really come from contribution and help people. And I personally have always felt that, you know, by building relationships and focusing there, the business will follow. Like, it shouldn't be business first, relationship second. It's relationship first, business second. And this is, from what I'm hearing from you guys, you feel this is a time to really implement that.
Mike, one thing I'll share just for folks too, because I think just for a lot of the fact, really empirical based folks and agents, you know, if you think back to, you know, 2006, 7, 8, people really, the number of home equity loans was very high. I looked at some stats, and there were actually $240 billion in home equity loans cashed out. Compared to 2019, there was 74 million. So people, first of all, they have more equity in their home. The mortgage standards are different. So mortgages, it's way more difficult to get a loan now, as for anybody else that bought a house near that time can tell you. So mortgage standards are different. Prices are not soaring like they were prior to the crash. If you look at the US appreciation during that time, prices leading up to the crash, much higher rates of appreciation than the last 3, 4, 5 years here. And just two other really quick things. There's, back in 2006, 7, 8, a surplus of homes, 36,000 homes for sale in the Twin Cities. We're at 8,000 something. So a short adage I like using is, you know, there's lots of heads, but not enough beds, really, in simplest terms, from buying and from renting. And then the last thing real quick is houses back then became so expensive to actually buy. Prices were high, wages were lower, and rates were at 6%. Prices now are still high, okay? Wages have increased up until this, you know, just happened. And mortgage rates are in the 3 and 4%. So families are spending less money for their mortgages compared to back then. And so that's why I think, you know, really look at the facts, do your own research, folks, on this. And I truly don't believe this is anywhere near 2006, 7, 8.
So Ryan, to comment or piggyback up what you said, for us geeks that like data, I always look at the affordability index, and you take a look at what that is today versus what it was before the crash, and it's not even close. Like, people have more disposable cash even after their house payment now by far than they did back then. And what you're talking about, I think, is the years leading up to 2008. You were seeing from 8 to 12+% appreciation a year, and now we're averaging 4.5 to 6.5, somewhere in that. Don't quote me exactly on the stats, but it's in there. We're talking about manageable growth versus what we saw before, correct? So what you're really saying is there's an economic picture that's much different today than what it was before, correct?
Yeah, totally. And I'm not trying to just be sunshine and rainbows here. Right. I mean, really, I think you have to do your own research, look at the facts themselves. And it's just different. Again, being a very small landlord here in the Twin Cities, I can tell you rental demand is out of control crazy. It has been so busy. And from a buyer standpoint, we all know that, you know, 400 and under, 350 and under, it's busy. So yeah, it's an interesting time for sure, but totally different than back then.
I think we all have PTSD from what we went through in 2008. So any economic change or shift, we all go, oh no, it's going to be 2008 again, without even really looking at the data. So I'm really glad you kind of touched on that. That was great. Anybody else have anything on that before we move on?
I will add something as the only person on this panel that didn't go through that as a realtor. Because I wasn't a real estate agent during that time. I actually was doing a different career. that was, based off of foreclosures and whatnot during that time. That was the world that I worked in, but I wasn't doing real estate. And I think it's important for the newer agents that are watching this, or the agents that haven't gone through something like that, lean on the people around you that have gone through it. Listen to their encouragement. Don't give up. Don't just throw in the towel and run away. It's not going to be forever that we're going to be in this time frame. We are going to come out of it, and the people that continue to do the day-to-day things that we're talking about right now are going to survive this, and we're going to come out of it with our heads raised, and it's going to be okay. But it's very important to lean on mentorship around you, and to listen to the words of the people that have gone through a tougher economy, of what did they do to get through those times, because those even though we are not in the same economic position that the market had been in 2008, the tactics that were used during those times are still tactics that are very viable today, meaning pick up the dang phone and call your people. Pick up the phone and call your people. It's not that hard. Anyway, I'll off myself.
Great feedback there. So, when we talk about Noelle, you mentioned that this won't go on forever. We keep on hearing the term the new normal. Like, this is a new normal, but is that indefinitely? Are we going to be forever socially distancing? Is this thing ever going to go away? There's not a lot of answers around that.
I'm going to social distance from you for sure, for forever.
You've been keeping away 6 feet from me for a long time. So anyway, the other thing I was going to ask is the mechanics of the transaction. We touched on it earlier. Some of the things we're doing to show houses responsibly. A few other things that we've been looking at too is anybody asking for pre-approval letters before buyers enter the home because of this, to limit traffic, unnecessary traffic? You guys doing that?
I'm seeing it happening from the showings that we're trying to arrange. The listing agents are asking for that.
Or limiting the amount of people per household, I guess you'd call it, that go in at a time, or making them sign up. Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
No overlapping showings. That's in the showing time. Like, you have to look when you can schedule on the house now, because nobody's allowing overlapping ones.
And we all know that open houses have now gone by the wayside. How about making people sign off that they've watched a virtual tour or the Matterport walkthrough or something like that. So I'm hearing a lot of innovation towards how people are trying to limit the amount of traffic and really funnel down to the most serious buyers. John, I think you were talking about showing time stats have dropped a little bit. Of number of showings that have actually physically been taking place. Sarah, you mentioned that you haven't sold a house virtually yet, but we're seeing quite a bit of it. In fact, I do like 7 to 8 transactions a year still for my friends and family. And I just did one completely virtual, right? So, we're starting to see the mechanics of the transaction change. Let's talk about some other mechanical changes. Who's looking at the way closings are being handled? Is that changing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important more than ever to be partnered with a really good mortgage professional and a title company as well. One thing I would encourage agents to be knowledgeable about mortgage, but not to, the changes that are happening. When you talk to your mortgage person in the past week or two, it's been like daily, and it's so hard to follow. A lot of it, that I think, again, what I'm encouraging folks to do is, again, focus on your daily effort on what you can control. It's important to know all the latest and the greatest regarding mortgage and FHA and different things, so you can be knowledgeable, but that in and of itself is a full-time job. And so versus reaching out, meaningfully impacting people, building relationships, showing care, that's our job. That's really, and so I'm not saying don't be informed about it, but any of the mortgage folks out there, and title too, with a lot of these virtual closings, there's just lots of changes.
There's closing companies going to virtual notaries at this moment, and you brought up the volatility in mortgage, and I was going to go there in a question, because I think this is a topic that we really need to discuss. We're hearing everything from government loans are going away to no, they're not. They're so expensive to get now on the back end that it's almost not worth it. We're hearing down payment assistance is starting to go by the wayside for many lenders. And what we're finding is Fannie, Freddie, a lot of their stuff isn't changing in guidelines, but the feasibility and profitability and risk of the actual lenders, the originating lenders and servicers, things are changing on their end. So trying to decipher between what's Fannie or Freddie, what's a lender overlay. As you said, Ryan, this is a lot. It's like information overload. So can we talk about that? What are you guys doing to cut through the noise on that? Anyone?
Yeah, I know one thing. Go ahead. One thing we've seen, which it's happened 3 times in this last week, where the appraiser has not gone in the house. Drive-by appraisals, desktop appraisals, where they're just going on Google Earth, which is kind of cool. It makes the whole process a lot easier. I'd love to know what the back-end underwriting looks like on that, but that's one piece that's been a little easier.
Hey, what do you guys think about? What does the real estate community think about nominating John Schuster for mayor? Mayor of something. I think John should be. John, you got my vote, man. I don't know what you're running for, but you got my vote.
You just put him on the ballot. Just put him on the ballot. So the sorry, Ryan. I totally had a question ready to go.
I totally killed the discussion.
Yeah. First off, I was trying to figure out what Noelle was laughing about. Oh yes, yeah. So appraisals. We're seeing that the jam with the refi market was really jamming up the appraisals, but also a lot of appraisers didn't want to go into homes. Mm-hmm. Now they've loosened it up and allowed appraisers to do drive-by appraisals, which is now again speeding things up a bit. Have you guys noticed that? As one of the positives of this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I had an appraisal last Thursday and I already got it back today. So I mean, it happened quickly. So, I mean, it wasn't something, where I was, pushing out my closing dates because they were saying it was pretty far out. Like I have a buyer in St. Cloud right now and they were saying outstate, it was even further out, so I was happy to see that one turn around that quick.
Love it.
Reached out to a lender to ask when they were going to get their appraisal done, going back to the story from last week. And they said, well, it's already been done and it's at value. And you're like, oh, great. This is great news to give to my seller.
Yeah, because the word on the street is appraisals are so slow right now. But now I think with them doing the drive-bys and more appraisal, what do you call it? The exception where you don't have to do it. I'm losing my word. Waiver. Yeah. So appraisal waiver. So with those two things going on, it seems like things are moving along pretty good. I want to switch topics real quick because it's something that we're seeing, and maybe Long, you can touch on this, being the fact that you're of Asian descent. We're seeing that a lot of Asian agents coming forward and saying, man, I'm getting straight up discriminated against because I'm Asian. We've had, I don't know how many people reach out for that. So, NAR put out some stuff about making sure that we're not going to violate fair housing in this market. And we're seeing that it's happening. Can you touch on that at all?
Way to call out the only Asian guy on the panel. Take it. Just joking aside, you guys don't know, we're in the people business. So it's everybody, right? This is one of those that affects everyone. I don't care about your social status, your economic, races, age. Obviously, the older people are more at risk, but other than that, everybody's affected by this. So just because you look different, when you ask someone where they've been traveling to, or if they had any symptoms, you ask everybody. Just don't point out to certain people to ask, so that, like Mike said, get in trouble for fair housing. And yeah, I mean, I have the same chance of contracting like one of you guys here. So definitely, I'm not at any higher risk or any Asian descent. So that's a good question.
Yeah, and whether it's refusing to drive in your car with a buyer, if you're going to do that, it has to be with everybody, not just picking people out. If you're going to end up, changing the way you behave as an agent, it has to be with everybody across the board. And I think people are, failing to see that, and I'm hoping that turns around. Any other feedback on that?
It's the same thing with asking a pre-approval for all buyers coming through, or a buyer to come through. If you're going to do it for one buyer, you better be doing it for every single buyer.
Mm-hmm.
Dang right. Yep, absolutely. Great point.
Long, I'm going to say, you know what, Long, I'm sorry to hear that. You certainly don't deserve that. And from all of us in the panel, everybody watching at home, people love you. And that is, I'm sorry to hear that. And for anybody else experiencing that, it's just horrible.
It is. And it's not one. We've heard it from quite a few Asian Americans in the industry that they're experiencing it, and they're starting to get pretty stressed out about it. So I wanted to make sure that everybody on the webinar here and on Facebook realizes that that's not acceptable behavior at all.
I will add to this. So first of all, just on a lighter note, just to be funny, Ryan, where you're sitting, first of all, look like you live in a Hobbit house because you're using it. And one thing that I love about Ryan is we think a lot alike. So everything he already added, I don't need to repeat. But we have the same name apparently on the Zoom. I mentioned there's too long on there. But one thing Ryan touched on earlier, I really want to add on is that it's really good to be remembered for the day after. I mean, whatever we do today, people are going to remember. I mean, I learned from 2008 one of the hardest challenge I had was returning phone call. Can you imagine? I have like 400 some properties, most of them have 20, 30 offers, an agent constantly asking a question. I can't return every call, So I had to deal with that. That was my day after, reputation I had to deal with for a long time. But I want to remind everybody on this call and everyone who's listening in, who are especially the real estate professional, what we'll get to do right now, the next 14 days of privilege, because it's considered essential service, right? So don't abuse it. Make sure we practice safe, and we don't overcome objection. We all talked about that already. So that's important, you guys, because the day after, the housing market makes up 17% of the GDP. So we are going to be leading the way to bring the economy back. Whatever we are doing in the next 14 days or longer is going to determine who we are on the day after. So I encourage everybody to keep being a professional you guys are.
And let's also keep in mind that that essential service could be pulled at any time. If we abuse that, it could be pulled from us. So we all have a responsibility to, play by the rules and make sure that our industry is protected as best as possible. All right. Another question for you guys. Where can people go to find facts? There's a lot of misinformation. And let's be honest, the thing that spreads even faster than a virus is fear and panic, right? So misinformation, half-truths, where can people go to find legitimate, facts about COVID and best practices, when buying and selling real estate?
One thing I would comment on, Mike, and maybe in the Facebook Live here, you could put the link up. The National Association of Realtors put up the CARE bill and the details and how that affects tenants, how that affects agents, how that affects, most importantly, consumers on there, and just sharing that information with everybody. And I think part of, and maybe we can talk about it at some point, there's a lot of talk out there that there's a provision in that CARE bill that talks about people not making their mortgage payment and really not having to show a hardship. And so, certainly I feel that, we need to be understanding to our clients, but we certainly should not be encouraging anyone to not make mortgage payments if they're able to make them, in my opinion, because I think, again, those that have been through the bank-owned crisis, there's a lot of unknown with it right now. And I just think it can be very problematic if we as agents are encouraging people to say, hey, yep, don't make it for 6 months. I mean, what about escrows? I talked to Brian Van Hoff today, a really good agent and broker, and he brought up some great points. So I don't know, some stuff to comment on with the group.
Well, I'll tell you, back in the distress days with REO and short sales, how many agents were out there advising people to walk away from the home and throw their keys at the table and throw them at the bank and leave, or just, some of the shady things you saw with short sale practices. I mean, agents sometimes will overstep and give really bad legal advice, and we do not want to see that happen whatsoever. And, speaking of, I wanted to transition a little bit into you brought up some of the relief and stimulus package stuff. Long, can you kind of touch on what is available for independent contractors, realtors, and what may be available for them in the hardship?
Yeah, I think it's worth it to add a disclaimer. All of us on this panel is not giving any legal advice, financial advice, or anything, right? Make sure you check with your people. But what you're talking about, Mike, is that there's a bill that just got passed for $2.2 trillion to help out with this coronavirus, and in there, $350 billion was put aside for a lot of things, like, for example, the where everyone in the home can apply, called the recovery rebates, that actually don't even apply. I think we all automatically get $100 per person up to $2,400, but the restriction would be if you earn more than $50,000 jointly or $75,000 individual, you don't get it. But other than that, most people will, and $500. NAR posted it. Ryan said we'll share that too, where you can go on and maybe apply. I think there's some unemployment stuff you can apply even as a 1099, which is different than normal, of $600 per week, up to 4 months. So there's a lot of stuff out there. Small business owner, there's a bunch of different loans out there. The disaster loan assistance, the economic injury disaster loan, but one that's really intriguing. By the way, this just passed on Friday, so a lot of people don't have a lot of details on it. Even your bankers may not. So hopefully they get some instruction soon. But the one that really could apply to a lot of us here is the Paycheck Protection Program. the Paycheck Protection Program allowed all small business owner, all of us in this panel here, most of the people listening in are small business owner, can apply for this, where it's a loan that potentially could be a grant where you don't have to pay back. So this is pretty cool. A lot of detail we'll post on this group to dig in more, but essentially some highlights is, whatever your payroll is, including potentially, I'm trying to get clarification on your 1099. Doesn't have to be just W-2 payroll. You can look at the most recent 12 months, take the average and multiply by 2.5. So round math, 120,000, okay, 10,000 a month, you would qualify for 25,000. Then you can take that 25,000 over the next 8 weeks. You can retroactive back to February 15th if you wanted to. That's the earliest date you can go for 8 weeks to help for payroll to yourself or your employees and pay rent and a bunch of other ones. And at the end, most of it can be deducted as a grant, and whatever's the balance left over is usually 4% or less over 10 years. So it's going to be pretty big deal for all of us to fight through this. So there's a lot of specifics coming out. I encourage you guys to find a banker. Now, by the way, this is an SBA, so you have to talk to one of 1,800 qualified SBA lenders and specifically ask for what's called the 7A program. So not every SBA lender actually offer the 7A, so they may have to learn it, but it's something that I think everyone should look into.
Absolutely. Any follow-up on that, guys? Noelle just has a smile. That's all she
Well,
got.
my advice is obviously biased because my background is that I'm a former attorney, right? And so my husband and I are always very careful in the advice that we give, one, our clients or our friends, and two, any of the agents that are with us, because, even for us as attorneys looking through all of these documents, there's not a for sure answer on any of this stuff. Like Ryan touched on, don't encourage people to not pay their mortgage. And I would heavily agree with that. That's really, as real estate agents, not our expertise level of how we can advise people. And even with the just mortgage business in general, we're not the experts in that area. And so we shouldn't be advising people in areas where we aren't the expert. All we can do is go and look through this document and figure out which things are applicable for us, as Long just explained, and which things are maybe applicable for our clients and point them in that direction. However, we cannot give the actual advice. That's where, unfortunately, attorneys and people that are trained in that area are going to have to come in and give advice. And maybe as leaders in the real estate industry, we should connect with some of those people and bring them on if we can get them to agree to it, to bring them on and have them go through and explain how it impacts us and where people should go in those documents. But this is part of the hard part when government, shoots out all of this information at us. There is no one out there saying, this is for sure how it's going to work. Go here, apply exactly at this link and go get this thing. Like, it's just not that easy. It's more complicated than that. And so this document is going to be super overwhelming for most people. It just is. And that's the sad part of it, is it's overwhelming. And that's why I keep going back to, just do, some of the business as usual, make your phone calls, everyone. We're going to come out of this. Like, the positive message that Ryan gave earlier is just so important to keep your headspace in a positive place. And we are an essential service. We need to pivot and use technology to get ourselves out of this.
So you didn't read the full 811 page of the bill?
I did not. Not that long.
I think you brought something pretty important, though, because as real estate professional, people look to us, okay, as leaders of our community. So it is our responsibility to be as educated as we can and to keep them calm and to lead them through this. And you're right. That's why I did the disclaimer, right? Don't live the legal advice. Make sure they talk to the people they're supposed to talk to. But yet at the same time, people do look to us, so we should have resources for them to go to and point them to.
Hey, if I could share, Mike, just one other thought is, again, and I think daily what we all as real estate professionals should be doing is making each day still count. I think it's easy to, during this time, to take some time off. And again, I'm not necessarily encouraging everyone to go out and work and be in unsafe environments, et cetera. But I think just remembering that this gives us an opportunity this time to do other work-related things that maybe when you're busy showing homes nonstop that you don't have time to do. And so challenge yourself to actually do that and to stay in a routine, to get up at the same time, to exercise, control your sleeping, your eating, and really focus on that, because it's so important. I mean, it's just so important. It's easy. I find myself, it's easy to say, oh, maybe I can sleep a little longer. I don't, not as much going on. So I don't know. That's just a thought maybe to share for other agents and brokers.
So I love it, Ryan. One thought that I had is, for the last many years, when the market appears to be easier, agents tend to get off of all the things in their business that actually make them successful. It gets easier because people are calling and saying, I want to buy a house, I want to sell a house. And all the lead generation and all the prospecting that normally in a harder market would be necessary falls by the wayside. Things like sticking to a schedule and time blocking and all the business basics that we get away from. Are you saying that now is a time that we really want to focus on building our business and all the best practices in business? And it's time to get back to that? Is it time to, go back to the roots and foundation again?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Sarah, talk about what you're doing. I mean, you're a good example of someone that's actually doing that. And I would say it's a big reason why you're so successful.
Well, it's just connecting with people again. And like, I've always kind of been old school and like, I mean, Noelle, I'm always jealous of your videos. I don't do those but like now I know I need to do something more with that. But at the same time, you got to go actually call people, make sure they know they care. I'm still doing, handwritten notes and mailing stuff. And, I was ordering some puzzles so that I could drop off Love Home MN puzzles at people's thing during this, like just little stuff that they can do that, keeps you on top of mind when they're there and making sure when they are ready, they, think of you. And everybody's going to look back on this. Like we're going to tell our grandkids stories about the pandemic of, 2020. So people are going to remember this in their head. And so you just want to be remembered as a positive part of this pandemic rather than, somebody that was trying to leverage it and make money off of it. And that's a very fine line to walk right now when half of our clients are saying, hey, you shouldn't be out, and half of our clients are saying, hey, I want to go out. So you just have to be really careful and I think empathetic to everybody, and people are just going to react differently. So we have to stay positive and try to educate them so that they're not so scared about it.
I love it. And the follow-up to that is this. You're mentioning, the handwritten notes and connectivity. Now let's talk about the change in our dynamic. A lot of us, not me, but a lot of you guys, a lot of agents out there are home with kids, right? So this is a new dynamic. You're home, you're with kids. How does this change the way that you're functioning in your business? Because what you're talking about, Sarah, takes planning, it takes implementation, it takes time to sit down to do it. And I feel like agents struggle with that a lot of times. And now add the extra dynamic of now you're stuck at home with all these distractions going on. How are you guys dealing with that?
I can talk to it if no one else
Please do.
Hence me being in my yoga gear today. I mean, this is like my 100th webinar I've done in the last 2.5 weeks. And I'm mom at home right now. I've got 3 little ones. I am one of the very, very lucky few people that has built-in childcare in my house. For those of you that don't know, Ryan, we talked about this quite a bit before I went through this. I hired an au pair that lives with us, and she's lived with us now. She's coming on her 2nd year of living with us, and I've coached a lot of agents into how do you get past part-time when you're a parent at home. I got my real estate license when I had 3 toddlers living at home, and learned how to find childcare and end up, taking that risk of hiring someone, right? But for those agents that are out there that don't have built-in childcare, you know what? Stop stressing about everything so much. This is a blessing. Take this time. Take the time with your kids. You're not going to get that time again, and be blessed by it, and take the actual opportunity to learn what your kids are doing at school and figure it out. And then maybe if you've got elementary aged kids, because that's where this is going to be the most stressful. It's for the people that have the elementary aged kids that are getting boatloads of homework. Oh my gosh, my kindergartner even has a ton of homework, you guys. It's kind of crazy what they send home with these kids these days. But, when your kids are working on their homework, maybe you have like a little list of things that you could sit there and work on too, and say, hey, kids, mom or dad has to do their homework right now too. So while you guys are working on your thing, I'm going to work on my thing. And I think most of our sphere and clients understand that, hey, we're in weird times right now. We're home with our kids and it's going to be okay. And then when you get out of this, when you come out of this, you know, maybe you will have a new perspective on one, either being able to work from home with kids, or two, that you might want to look at hiring childcare that is there and available. We've had an amazing experience having an au pair living with us. So that's.
Love it. It's great. That was really great.
And get outside. You know what? We're in Minnesota and it's nice outside. Get outside. There is no reason why no one can have an excuse of going for a walk every day. Like, get outside. That fresh air is going to bring you back home with a renewed mindset, and just like, get outside. If you've got kids, bring them outside with you, let them run around, maybe put them on their scooters, make them go like twice as far as you do so that they're tired and they take a nap so you can get some work done.
Hey, Mike, if I can comment on one thing, you know, too, especially during this time, I mean, people really seem on edge. Even fellow agents really seem on edge. And so I think more than ever, I think all of us in the industry, let's try to be good partner agents with each other on files, on transactions. I can't tell you how people are edgy. I get it. I understand it. People are losing jobs, their 401ks half as much as it used to. I mean, everybody's hurt. But I'll tell you, we make it a lot worse on our files when people are crabbing at each other. I mean, I don't know. It just seems people are really on edge. So the more that we can at least cooperate with each other, the better it will be for us all, for our clients to close. John, you do an awesome job of it. You're always, I mean, you got an awesome reputation. People love working with you and your team.
You know, and I think, you know, this industry as a whole can be so competitive, and we need to drop that and become collaborative at this moment more than any. Like, we have to start working together, not against each other. Because the whole industry, like I said, you know, is feeling the same thing. So great advice there, Ryan. Any follow-up to that? Okay, so one thing I wanted to touch on, and one of you guys kind of brought this up, the on edge. Ryan, you brought this up. So the on edge factor. This topic of COVID is so divisive. You've got so many different thought processes of how we should be handling this. You got one camp that thinks that, you know, hey, you guys should not be out showing houses. You're not essential. This is BS. Don't go out. Don't make it worse. You got another camp that's saying, hey, I still want to go out and live my life and go buy and sell a house and do whatever I want to do. I don't want this to disrupt my plans. How do we operate with both of those camps? And we're trying to service both sides of this fence. So what are your advice there?
I've been trying to look at it like talking about politics or religion in business, and not put my own neuroses or any of my fear on anybody else, because it's easy to go down that in a 20, 30-minute conversation on what could happen. It's like doing the what if inspection game with a seller before you have the inspection report back. It doesn't even make sense to go down that road. And obviously, you know, as everyone has said on the panel here, now is a great time to engage with not only your past clients, but your agents, people you're working with, and just try to have positive conversations and really just shut up and listen to them and and just have those engaging conversations. And it's so much more fun having these calls versus, you know, gosh, I got to make 50 calls today and see who's going to move, just to have 20 really good conversations with people. And those connections are so much deeper. And as Sarah, as you said, people are going to remember how we acted and what we put out, you know, during this period. And so, I mean, it's just really trying to be positive, engaging. And for me, it's just to shut up.
Love it. Love it. Anything else on that? All right. We're getting kind of late in the day here, so I wanted to open up for questions and answers. We got a couple things here. Comment Legacy Title is doing drive-through closings in Blaine. We've been hearing about that. I'm going to take a burger and fries with mine. That's cool.
Speaking of drive-through, I thought you might get a kick out of this. Anybody who's watching, I saw last night on the news that priests are doing drive-through confessions.
Yes.
Anyway, random note.
Good. My vehicle's been seen in line many times. No. So anyway, another one. Do you think it's time to become well-versed in short sales? What do you guys think?
I don't think so. I think that the mortgage community learned last go around that it doesn't make sense to foreclose on all these houses. My gosh, you're hearing, and again, we're not giving anyone advice, but that they're going to work through people 3, 6, even 12 months on some files. I don't think the banks want to take these back. And so I have hope that once we get to the other side of this, that there's probably going to be even more stimulus to get this economy engine up and running pretty fast again. And so I think unless in the extreme circumstances, we're not going to see the foreclosure short sale tidal wave of 2009-10. Thank God.
I agree
Nice.
with, yeah, I agree with him on that too. And I think that the government is being more proactive this time, where last time we were reactive, like the market hit and it went to crap. And then they threw the money out trying to save everybody after everybody was kind of too far gone. And they're trying to prevent anybody from going down that path in the beginning, is my thought on it. Is, and I think that's why they changed the FHA guidelines too, to make it harder to get a loan, because they want to make sure that the people really have staying power and can afford that, because we can't afford to have all the bank loans and bank mediated sales like we did, because that's really what caused it last time, is people really couldn't afford their houses that they were in even before the economy went bad last time.
And it's funny that I think, John, you mentioned this, that you felt the train coming to the stop last time. And I remember new construction was slowing down in 2005. 2006, things were getting weird. 7, it was really weird. Like, we could all sense it. Where right now we're seeing much faster reactions, which I can 100% agree with that. Any other final thoughts on that?
Yeah, a couple things I wrote down because everybody has a great panel that all my notes were spoken for. So it's awesome job, everybody. But this is the time for everyone to jump on at home. If you're a real estate professional, get your CEs done, knock it out. Because when June come around, you guys, this market's going to heat up like crazy. Work in your system and process and only control what you can control. I think, Ryan, you actually touched on that. We'll get through all this, you guys, together. So we're going to get through this. But if you haven't already, virtual showings and virtual open house is going to be more and more available and popular. So grab a domain if you haven't already. I jump on GoDaddy right now and get some. Mike and I already got some good ones. So now I can share it with you guys. Because of what looks like we had over a bunch of people share, probably 400 some people are on. I think we're going to start. We already worked on it and we'll share with you guys. We're going to start a Facebook group called the Minnesota, MN for Minnesota, RE for Real Estate Community COVID-19. So we love for all you guys on here as panels to be admins, and let's help lead people through this.
And again, so, one thing that you touched on too, Long, is, what's going to be coming forward in technology, things that are out there that people are going to be leveraging. So, on that COVID-19 closed Facebook group, when you're in there, we're going to be taking what we learned that people are using or utilizing in business and putting great technology pieces, great success stories, as well as, true COVID facts and what people are learning there too. So we're going to hopefully get a lot of engagement on that group. Of course, Noelle, you're going to be a moderator on there. I mean, I just volunteered you, so you're in every other group, so welcome.
Hey, Mike, one thing I wanted to share is, and kind of to piggyback on what Long said, is I think we all have to keep this in perspective as well. Most likely everyone who's watching this webinar has a computer and you have a house to shelter in. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people in our world that do not. And so I think, again, I'm not trying to minimize the financial hardship to everybody, but I think at the end of the day, maybe this will cause some of us to look at the sunshine that's out there today, to slow down and actually look at some of the positive. And I just think, turn off the nonstop Fox News, CNN, social media. And seriously, it sends you down a rabbit hole and it's not productive at all. And so, again, I think it's just, we have to keep this in perspective.
I love it. And, so another point on this, it's not going to be forever. We all know that things are going to adapt and change and won't be forever. And we don't have a lot. I mean, right now it seems like we're triaging the situation. A new day happens, new information, surfaces. We don't hear a lot about a long-term exit strategy out of the COVID problem, right? So I think that's why people have some uncertainty. We're not hearing that, hey, once we reach a certain number of ventilators or a certain number of beds and masks, and we're expecting therapeutics out by this day, we're not hearing a ton of logistical exit strategy planning, which I think causes uncertainty. And the more we can keep it in perspective worldwide of what we've already been through as a society, what other people have dealt with for many years, that this is just a moment in time and we're going to get through it. And who we are going to be is going to be, we have to think about being the person we want to be the day after COVID, not losing it, losing our mind and, losing who we are now and panicking and creating fear and panic. So I love that advice. All right, one other question we had. Do you think there will be a student loan forgiveness, and how could that impact the next generation to buy? So I have not heard anything in the stimulus package on student loan forgiveness yet. Could that be in another round of, stimulus? Maybe, but that'd be one of those things we launch on that COVID closed Facebook group if that does surface. All right, that was the last question. Any final thoughts, ladies and gentlemen? Again, thanks for being on the panel. I think it was invaluable. Hopefully a lot of people got something from it, but any final thoughts before we let out?
I would say one thing. Check in also on your fellow agents. You know, if you've got friends that are realtors that you haven't checked in with, just check in with them. It's a good time also to just collaborate with each other, to call, and to help spread the virus of positivity around our industry. So if you've got a list of, 5, 10 agents that you've done deals with over the last couple of years, or just that you've kind of bonded with, call them and check in on them.
Love it. Any other final thoughts?
I think just, again, as so many of you have said so eloquently, just realize this is a season and we are gonna get through it. I think being calm, being positive, working with each other well, we are still in a good market. We're gonna get through this. The year we're gonna look back and we're gonna get through this, but reach out to people, be empathetic, and again, I appreciate the opportunity to be on here with all you outstanding agents.
So all I know is I'm going to put in the calendar for a year from now for this panel to reconvene, and we'll see if Sarah actually did the videos.
Yeah.
That was my takeaway. If she's going to do Noelle's
not.
videos or not.
And we'll see if John was elected mayor. John, we got to figure that out. You may need a campaign manager. Long might be able to help you.
There we go.
And Ryan officially changed his name to Long. So
Exactly. So 1 year from now, we will know all these things. It'll happen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again so much. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.